Hi, everyone. I'm Julie Gunlock with the Independent Women's Forum, and I'm so excited, I should say, to be here with a good friend, Lenore Skenazy. Lenore is wait for this list. She is a blogger, a columnist, an author. She's even hosted a reality television show. This is my first time talking to a reality television star. She is a
star is pushing it. Right.
A public speaker, and she is the founder of the Free Range Kids movement, as well as the president. This is exhausting. I don't know how you have any time.
I'm bored.
Of the Let Grow organization, which she's going to talk about. So thank you for joining us, Lenore.
Oh, Julie, I've been your fan for as long as you've been my fan, because we're fighting the same thing, which is hysteria seeping into the culture and sometimes into law.
That's right. That's right. Well, hey, that was a perfect segue. We didn't even plan that, but thank you for mentioning this new law. If you could tell us, this is a huge victory for parenting. I mean, you could say it's a victory for free range parenting, but I would say it's a victory for parenting in general. Tell us a little bit about this big win in Utah.
Actually, somebody wrote to my blog and said, this is legislation that is needed to protect sane people, which I think is true. So here's the deal. In Utah just passed what they're calling the Free Range Parenting Bill, Free Range Kids Bill, named after the book, The Blog, The Movement. And the idea is that parents should be allowed to decide on their own, without government intervention, what age they think their kids can, play outside, walk to school, wait briefly in a car, or come home with a latchkey. And in fact, these are things that parents always were allowed to decide until recently, when I think armed with an irrational fear that anytime a child isn't supervised, they're automatically in danger, and cell phones, which allowed people to call 911, and I think this happened to you, to sick the cops on well-meaning parents who have made a rational decision that, rather than dragging the triplets across the icy parking lot to pick up the Tylenol, which one of them has a fever, I'm going to let them wait in the car, and then I'm going to come back and get them. Well, that's a parent who loves their kids and knows their neighborhood and knows their kids better than somebody passing by. But somebody passing by with a cell phone, weaponized cell phone, has been allowed to disrupt so many parents' lives by calling 911 and saying, there's a child unsupervised, go get them.
Right. Right. You mentioned this happened to me. It did happen to me. And that's a long story. I don't want to get into it too much, but what was interesting to me was that it wasn't only scary that this police officer came, it was actually an FBI agent, came over, flashed his badge and tried to intimidate me and was sort of scolding me for allowing my children to stay in the car for about 15 minutes. Well, I ran into a store that had glass windows. I mean, I could see into the parking lot. But anyway, what amazed me was it had a chilling effect on me. It took me a while to sort of get my courage back, because one, I didn't want to go through that again. I didn't want to be yelled at by some random dude. I didn't want to be threatened. So I think it's interesting. I always talk about there being these three pots of parents. They're the true free rangers, right? They believe in it. They're not afraid of it. There's the people who are actually, much more helicopter. They're very nervous. But then there's this category of people who really want to be a free range parent, but they're so afraid of that guy with the weaponized cell phone, as you say. So I think this Utah bill is so critical, because it'll make people feel like, you know what, I can try this, and I'm not going to have Department of Social Services on my doorstep.
Right. And that's the whole idea. It's the law still allows for the government to function as it should. If a child is literally in danger, they are truly neglected, which means that there's no food at home, the parents don't come home, or they're abused, there's drugs, there's, pimping them out, whatever. That's what I want, the authorities to come in and investigate. But a parent simply making a decision by the seat of their pants, and you make 1,000 a day, what are we going to have for dinner? Are they going to have a cookie before dinner? Are we going to stop first and get pick up the kid, or go first to school and get the homework, whatever it is? The idea that any one of these decisions can turn into something that throws your life upside down is ridiculous. And so keep the government out of everyday parenting decisions and allow them to function to literally protect children who are in danger, not parents who don't make the exact same decision you would. Oh, I wouldn't let her walk to school at 9. I'd let her walk to school at 10. Okay, good. You do that. Free range parenting, let grow parenting. It doesn't say there's a certain age that everything must be done, and otherwise your kids are lost. No, but it has always been up to the parents, and we're just giving parenting back to the parents. And frankly, this is the Independent Women's Forum. I mean, there's been, I have a post that I hopefully will get to put up very soon that talks about how nobody tells women you shouldn't work, or, you shouldn't get that advancement because, you have to take work at home at night and you're working on it and you're neglecting your kids. Nobody says it that way. People say we're all for equality. Go ahead, rah, rah. But I saw your child the other day. He was walking home from school. He looked so, I don't know, vulnerable. You okay with that? I just worry. I worry. You apparently don't worry because you're so concerned about your career. I worry that your child is unsafe. Or I hear so many times from moms who let their kid go to a play date. I hate the word play date, but they let their kid go, 5 houses away or a couple blocks away to visit a friend. And then the other parent marches the child home.
Right.
I just didn't want to let him go. I know you did, but I didn't want to. And so what is this telling women? They're telling women that basically anytime that you are not literally supervising, hovering over your children, they're in danger. And somehow you've decided that something is more important than your children's safety. That to me is a very anti-feminist attitude.
Absolutely. And it's interesting too. I think that it also really the idea of this judgment or calling CPS or whatever, it does really hurt. I think women who are really struggling financially because they might not. You think about. I want to just really quickly read one of the comments that came in. Patrice wrote, "Latchkey kid right here, and I did okay. My husband actually was a latchkey kid as well, and his mother could not afford a nanny or any kind of minder. And you think about this, he was 10, 11, and he would come home and he had to call his mom. And nowadays, I mean, you can imagine the reaction to that. And so I think it's so good that you point that out, that it really does harm those who live at or under the poverty line a lot more than people who can afford carers and minders and all this.
Think of all these stories that I put a bunch of them on my blog and also on Reason, where I'm a contributor. The Deborah Harrell story became pretty well known. I broke that story, which was of a mom who was working at McDonald's. Normally her daughter would come with her every day and play on her laptop while the mom did her shift. Well, they were burglarized. The laptop was stolen. The kid says, "Can I go to the park instead?" Giant park nearby, really popular.
Sunlight, exercise, getting
sprinklers in South Carolina in the summer. Not a bad idea. And the mom says, okay, gives her a cell phone. Well, another person sees her there for 3 days. "Where's your mother?" "My mom's working." "Oh, yeah? Yeah, she's not with you?" And calls the 911. They not only took the mother, Deborah Harrell, and threw her in jail for a night, but if you go on Reason, I actually posted a long time ago the interrogation of the mother, which is so horrifying. She's black, the guy's white, the cop is white. And it's like, "So you thought you would just let her go, huh?" "Yes, I did. I thought she'd be okay." "You thought she'd be okay." And it's like, she was. Yeah. Well, she might not have been. And the idea that we can harass parents because we can come up with some fantasy in our mind of something terrible happening means that you can arrest anyone anytime, because your child could, fall under. I see a chair behind you. What if that chair falls on him? Did you think about that, Julie? Did you think about that before you put your kid in that house? So everybody is very vulnerable when the authorities get to imagine danger and also imagine that they care more about your kids than you do. And in the Deborah Harrell case, her daughter was taken away for 17 days into foster care, as if that's really caring about the child. Yeah. Like, oh, we'll just put her in foster care. That has such a great rep. For 17 days away from her loving mother, who's a single mom, struggling, working really hard at McDonald's. Forget it. We care more.
You've been very good about tracking these stories. I've actually wrote my own piece on the free rent of the Utah bill and used some of the examples that you've tracked for so long. And it's so important that, because when I talk about this issue, sometimes people say, "Oh, is this really necessary?" And I just, these cases are astonishing what people have been put through.
I have another one on my blog this week. This was a mom and dad, only the mom was charged, for letting their 4.5-year-old play across the street in this tiny little park that all the other houses look upon, and you can see it from their porch. And somebody passing by thought that the 4.5-year-old was 2, and that was taken as fact. by Child Protective Services, which thought, who lets a 2-year-old play in the park across the street from their home? And they had to hire 3 lawyers. They got off. But when people say the free range kids law is only for the wealthy who, decide to free range their kids, the free range kids law is so that anybody, including those without a lot of means, doesn't have to be held to this super helicopter standard and be expected to hire 3 lawyers. What if you don't have 3 lawyers? What if you can just point to this law and says, excuse me, this is not against the law to let my kid wait at home with a latchkey while I go on my job interview. Thank you. Goodbye.
Well, let me talk a little bit about the criticism of the Utah bill. There's so much I want to talk to you about. But one thing that happened that was interesting this week, and we have seen some sort of pushback on the Utah law, but recently there's a show on, I believe it's CBS, called The Talk. Am I getting that right? Okay.
I would call it the squawk, but okay. She's there. No, she's there. I hate her more. No, I hate her more.
I don't watch these shows, but I saw a clip of these women, Sharon. I mean, these are very wealthy women that are on this show as co-hosts, and they were horrified at the idea of free range parenting. Tell me a little bit about what was said on that show.
Well, what was so interesting to me is that the idea of the free range kids bill in Utah was introduced this way. There's this law in Utah that allows children with good judgment, maturity, to go outside. And because of the way it was presented and sort of telegraphed to the audience goes, there's retching sounds. And then, of course, the next line from the host, Julie Chen, is, some people think this is good for self-reliance. And it's like, yeah, everyone. But some people say it could open children to harm, or it could put children.
Didn't she mention the children on the milk cartons?
Yes. And then they went, and so one person said that, why would you ever let a child play in the park? Parks are for perverts. I'm like, yeah, that's generally why a municipality okays a park. They're like, where are we going to put perverts? We want to attract more perverts. Let's put up a park. It's like, what if some children go to it? Nah, they don't go to parks. Parks aren't for children. Parks are for perverts. Everyone knows that. So Sharon Osbourne established that that's why communities open playgrounds. And then the next person, who I don't know who she was, this beautiful blonde woman next to Osbourne, said that, if you let your kid play outside, think of, and then up comes a picture of Eitan Pates, who is a tragic story. He was kidnapped at age 6 in 1979. So I did my calculating, 4 million children born every year. So let's see, we've had how many children to think about that we could talk about on this show? Since 1979, 152 million. Oh, that's right. 152 million children born since that case. But we're going to ignore anything that goes well, anything that goes normally, and concentrate on the most anomalous, most terrifying, most tragic story, and use that as the touchstone by which we should choose how to parent. And I say that's called hysteria. Yes. When you only think of the worst thing anytime, and flashing in your mind is constant death. That's not normal. It's not well, and it doesn't serve anybody, because you can't live your life trying to avoid things that are extremely rare and extremely unpredictable. It's like never going outside because the meteor could fall on you.
Well, and look, we read all the time about what are parents doing nowadays, or really what are kids doing? They're staying indoors, they're playing electronics, they're watching television. These, we all can agree. I mean, look, I don't want to get into this big, let's look at the data and let's look at the scientific. I mean,
no, and also I don't mind them inside some of the time. I don't mind them online some of the time. But if we want them to play outside, and if we want them to develop some of the memories, forget about the resourcefulness and the independence, some of the memories that you have from childhood, or of things going wrong, getting lost, screwing up, accidentally setting a fire. My friend always tells me about that. You don't necessarily want that, but you do want, like, childhood used to be a separate place. Like, you would remember childhood almost like a vacation. It was someplace else that you used to be. And now you're in the plain old adult world. Well, the children are in the adult world all the time. I feel
it's hard to also deny that with being outside comes exercise, okay? Fresh air, and having
eyesight.
And yes, I mean and again, it's not. I think part of what is so great about being outside is it's unpredictable, right? there is something good about that. Kids are forced to face things that maybe they didn't expect. Whereas
Right.
video games, like, come on, we all know it's not real. So that's, but before, and honestly, I could talk to you for 24 hours, but I also want to also quickly pivot, because I want you to talk a little bit about Let Grow.
Yeah.
I think this part is so important because, I have 3 kids in elementary school, and my elementary school actually is really good about free play. They really encourage it. It's not always structured. I've always been really impressed with that. Tell me a little bit how Let Grow is taking the free range kids movement when parenting and bringing it to the schools.
Okay, so the whole idea of Let Grow is free range kids. For 10 years, I changed a lot of minds. Now it's time to change behavior. So Let Grow has tried to come up with a couple of very easy, straightforward initiatives that make it normal and simple for kids to get some independence, for parents to give it back to them. And the 2 initiatives that we're doing in schools are the Let Grow project, which I can tell you in one sentence, which is teachers tell the kids to go home and ask their parents if they can do one thing on their own that they haven't done yet, like walk the dog or get themselves to school, pick up something from the store. And because it's very hard to be the only person doing that in your neighborhood, if you have the whole class doing it, or even better, the whole school doing it. I was just talking to a superintendent on Long Island where they're going to have 10 schools doing it next year.
Oh, that's great.
It's easy. It's normal. What's your kid doing? Oh, my kid's, running an errand. Oh, my kid is getting himself to soccer and back. Oh, you know what? My kid goes to that soccer thing. Let them go together. And so it just renormalizes basically our own childhood. What can I say? It renormalizes giving kids some independence. And then the other thing is keep schools open for free play. After school, or sometimes, before school also works. But after school, there's this swath of time that most of us used to come home, eat a snack, and go outside again, or me, go in my room and read. But anyways, there was free time. And so if you leave the schools open, and instead of just having maybe chess club or homework help, you have the whole playground or the gym open, and you have some junk there that they can play with, whether it's hula hoops or PVC pipe or whatever, fabric. They come up with their own games. They come up with mixed age kids play together. And one of the nicest things that we've seen is that, children are usually very segregated from each other. The 9-year-olds are with the 8 and 9-year-olds, and the 6 and 5-year-olds are together. But if you have this, I actually heard about this story. This was a lady in Canada whose school is now doing the Let Grow Free Play Club. And she said there was a kid who came the first 2 weeks always with a book. Because he knew that nobody was going to play with him and he's kind of awkward. But then he started playing, and I'm not sure if he was playing with younger kids, but I'll bet he was, because a kid who's a 9-year-old dork is a hero to the 6-year-olds.
Totally.
Oh my God, he gave me a ride, or he threw the ball to me and I hit it. And the 9-year-old knows to throw it a little easier to the 6-year-old. And the 6-year-old doesn't want to cry like a baby in front of those cool 9-year-olds. And suddenly everybody is fully human and relating, and play exists for a reason, and it exists to make us human and to make us love the world and love getting up in the morning and solving problems and being excited, and to replace it with only structured activities where we're told, you're going to play this position for this long and you're on this team. That's very different from free play. So bringing back free play at the school gives you enough kids to play with, because when my kid would come home, my younger kid who loved to go outside and play, there was never anyone outside to play with. It drove both of us crazy. So there's a quorum of kids to play with. They're different ages, and the parents feel they're safe because they're not in the pervert park. They're at school. So the same place they dropped them off in the morning. So it solves a lot of problems. And plus, for working parents, you're giving your kids this very developmentally rich thing that just happens to be play after school for either no money, or you have an adult there, but the adult is not organizing the play. The adult is like a lifeguard at the pool. If anything terrible happens, they're there, but otherwise it's just up to the kids to frolic. And those 2 things I think are really significant, and they're really basic.
Tell me, I want to get to the comments too. It says, do you think that this is the solution to the adult children who need adult class just to learn independence?
One word. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I have another comment here that was good. It said, I can't find it now, but it said something about how do you encourage parents to adopt these things. I think there, like I said, there's those three, in my view of parenting, there's always these three buckets of people, and there are people who, no matter what you tell them, they think every park is a pervert park, right? And they think
that's why I'm talking about the difference between changing minds and changing behaviors. Because what I've seen for 10 years, a lot of people would nod along with me, but they couldn't bring themselves to do it. What if I could never forgive myself, et cetera, even though we don't say that before we put kids in cars, which is the number one way kids die. But anyways, the only thing that changes behavior is when you can convince a parent to once let their kid run that errand to the grocery and the kid comes back with the bread. The parent is so elated, so proud, so thrilled that changes the behavior. So the only thing that changes behavior is the parent itself seeing the kid, and that great burst of pride that I finally realized is because until you let your kid do something independently, you don't have any evidence that they can do something on their own, because you're always with them. Oh no, honey, I'll do it, or let me help, or don't talk to him, or I'll make the change. But if you let them do something on their own and they come back, you have the evidence that your DNA craves as a parent that you can die.
It's so funny. Over spring break, one of my children was with their grandparents, but I had two at home, and I needed to do things like this, and I didn't need them in the background, like sort of the BBC guy, with the kid.
Yeah, that was the greatest. Yeah. So
I was trying to avoid that. So I sent, and you've met my kids. I sent them off, my 7-year-old and my 10-year-old off to the pizza place. I gave them some cash, and they actually took some cash from their piggy banks. They walked, it's about a mile away to a pizza place. They ordered it on their own, and they went to a toy store right next door. And then they came home, and again, they felt so proud and they were happy that they did it, but they've done this before. So I was like, oh, great. I'm so glad you guys did it. But it was interesting. Just the other day, we went back to that pizza store, and the owner of the pizza shop said, I love it. And they've been there. They've done this a couple times. He said, nobody does that. He goes, I used to do that all the time when I was a little boy. And it's funny because he would go to he's from here, and he would go to that same pizza shop that he now owns. Wow, and he said, I loved, when they came in and they got their money out and they felt so responsible. So it was funny to see his reaction as well. And I think that has a lot to do with when other parents see kids doing this, you feel not so alone. You feel like you're not such an anomaly.
So that's why I have to really suggest. So if you go to letgrow.org and you click on parents, and underneath parents, it says the Let Grow Project. Click on it. First of all, there's a video of it. But also get your school to do it, because it is hard to do alone. And yet, once you do it, then you are re-engineered to want more of this. And your kids want more of this. And it's sort of like when your kid first, stops crawling and toddles towards you, your heart leaps up, and you don't say like, that's so great, my kid can toddle, but now he should go back to crawling. You don't ever think that, because now you see them in a new light, and of course they're growing and they're blossoming, and you are hardwired to love that. And similarly, when your kid does something on their own, you will be so proud that you won't go back. And if it's everybody in the class doing it or everybody in the school doing it, everybody's going to go forward. In this district on Long Island that had 7 schools doing the Let Grow project this year, they said next year it's all 10 schools. And it's going to be a part of the curriculum baked in that every week the kids have to do something. Instead of homework on Thursday nights, it's Let Grow Thursdays, and they all have to do something. And what was interesting is once they started that project there in this one particular district, the principal of one of the schools said, look at this. And here was a mother bragging about what her kid had done for his Let Grow project. And I said, okay, that's nice. And she said, no, you don't understand. That's not our district.
Oh,
those parents in the nearby district with friends in Patchogue, Medford were like, hey, how come my kid's not raking the leaves? What's the matter with my school? They're not making my kids more independent. What is this? Is such a terrible neighborhood. My kids are so slow. What's the problem? And they adopted it. They call it the Let Grow Project too. So I feel like that's why I'm pretty positive that like once we get it in a couple more schools, maybe your kid's school, Julie, or anybody who's listening, just write to me, Lenore@letgrow.org. I feel like it is going to go viral because even the schools love it, because the teachers at these PatMed schools were saying like the kids are doing more of their homework. They're more responsible. And on the days when they have the free play, everybody shows up for school. Absenteeism goes to 0. So why wouldn't a school want this? And I think they will. I think it's in their own best interest, the parents' best interest, and of course the kids and the future of America, not to put too fine a point.
Well, listen, I want to close by I want to give you an opportunity really quickly to give, you've already said the website a couple times, but of Let Grow. So if you could just repeat those, that would be great.
Okay. Of course, I was already laughing over your words and I missed what I'm supposed to say. My website and what?
And how to contact you.
Oh, okay. So the website is letgrow.org. And it used to be Free Range Kids. So if you go to Free Range Kids, it directs you to letgrow.org because it's basically Free Range Kids with a budget. Yay. And a board. So it's the same thing, but now it's a nonprofit. Now I have a job. So that's good. And if you want to write to me, it's so simple. Lenore, Lenore, at letgrow.org. Not let it grow, not let go, not let's go, let grow, as in let them grow up.
That is great. I want to also mention to anybody who's listening that IWF featured Lenore as a modern feminist. We had a wonderful, Cheryl Hayes is one of our wonderful writers, and she featured Lenore, a great write-up that is available at IWF.org, and check IWF.org out anyway as well. Lenore, thanks so much. We are such huge fans of yours and this.
I plug here for Julie for just 1 second. Julie wrote a book that I'm positive I have on my shelf right now, but what a mess. Called From Cupcakes to Chemicals, about how we're afraid of everything. And she coined a term that I wish I coined called the culture of alarmism. And that's what we're living in, the idea that everything is somehow out to get us, and especially out to get our kids. And so we're two sides of the same coin, which is fighting the idea that everything is terrible out there. We're living in the safest times in human history. There's never been a safer time to be a child in America, according to an article by that title in the Washington Post. And we're not grateful. Instead of being grateful that we are living in a time that our forebears, our foremothers could only dream of, we're acting as if the kid goes around the corner and they're doomed. So we've been, that's how we became friends, is we both came from the same recognition, like, wait a minute, something is out of whack. Reality is great and our minds are terrified.
That's right. That's right. And that's so important. We are just huge fans of your movement. And I'm
a big fan of your movement.
But I will tell you also, as a mother of 3 little boys, which is, hard, Lenore, I am devoted to this movement. I believe in free ranging. I agree with you. I sometimes have trouble. I force myself, I push myself to do more things, to give my children the freedom and to trust them, because I really can't trust them. But since really becoming a free range parent, I believe I'm enjoying it more. Parenting is joyful. It can be joyful.
Right.
I feel like I'm using the kind of parenting style that's helping my kids. So thanks so much, Lenore. You are doing great work.
Oh, my pleasure.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you soon. Bye, Lenore. Thank you.
Okay. Bye, Julie.